Welcome, everybody, to Straight Shooter Wrestling Podcast. I'm one half of your host, Santi Steve. SummerSlam is over. It feels like the WWE is a different place altogether since, obviously, the changes that have come about to the front office. And we're going to talk a little bit about that. Actually, it's our main topic of the show, as it happens to be. But how do you feel about all of this?
Honestly, Santi, it feels like I'm a kid again. It's refreshing. It is exciting for Monday to come. I actually freaked out Sunday night because SummerSlam was on Saturday, and I was like, "Oh no, I slept through Monday Night Raw. What happened?" So I was excited for Monday Night Raw this week. I'm excited for Friday Night SmackDown to see what they're gonna pull off for the fall away episode of SmackDown through SummerSlam. Listen, man, this is exciting times in pro wrestling altogether because it almost feels like it's falling into AEW as well. We don't really talk a lot about AEW on here, but like even tonight's Dynamite is like, woo, a little shots left, right, and center by the boys from AEW. So it's an exciting time to be a pro wrestling fan. It's exciting to be a sports entertainment fan. What about you, buddy? Where are you at with this whole dynamic and this shift?
I have an announcement, and I have something to admit. Monday night's episode of Monday Night Raw was the first full episode of Monday Night Raw that I actually watched from beginning to end without just going to YouTube and watching the clips and the highlights after the fact. I actually tuned in to a full episode of Monday Night Raw, and Steve, so did apparently 2.2 million people, the highest rated Raw that they've had in years at this point. And again, like, I've talked down the importance of ratings because people are consuming content in different ways. That being said, a jump from 1.4 to 2.2 is pretty indicative that people are excited about what's to come in the WWE. And I mean, speaking of SummerSlam, it's been heralded generally across the board as WWE's best pay-per-view in the last couple of years, and that all comes in off the heels of Triple H becoming the head of creative and the head of talent relations. So immediate impact is already being felt of Triple H's presence. And you know what? It also made us realize just how much we missed him during his hiatus as well. So thank you, Triple H. Welcome back. And in fact, we're going to be talking about you for the entirety of this episode. As you've already seen in the title, we're going to be talking about 10 people that we think are realistically capable of coming back into the WWE fold, whether they're free agents right now in New Japan and AEW, or maybe they're in limbo altogether. We're going to be talking about those 10 superstars that we could see returning back to the WWE family with Triple H at the helm. Now, with that being said, before we jump into this, let's talk about some of the changes we've already seen, and maybe just talk about some of the names that have already made the transition either back into WWE or from NXT into the main roster. I'll throw the first one out there, and that is Dakota Kai. Released as part of the early May wave of releases. We all unanimously, as wrestling fans, we knew they dropped the ball. We knew that they had a gem and that AEW was about to pick it up for free 3 months later after that 90-day non-compete clause ended, and WWE came back and swooped Dakota Kai allegedly right from under AEW, and that was never going to happen under Vincent Kennedy McMahon. I know you and I love Vince, but he clearly did not see what everybody else saw in Dakota Kai. So that is return number one. What are your initial thoughts about that return?
All right, so first off, you look at the date of Dakota Kai's release. It was April 29th of 2022, okay? July 29th would have been maybe to the start of the start of August would have been like that borderline of her signing with AEW. And I'll tell you right now, Tony Khan was licking his chops saying, "Wow, we're going to get a superstar." And I think this transition, I think there was a couple of weeks before this that Vince knew that he was going to do the retiring, and Hunter's on the phone to her right away. Do not sign anything. Trust me, trust me, trust me. Don't sign anything. Changes are coming. We're bringing you back. I think, well, everybody saw what I thought when Dakota Kai's music hit. I marked out when Bayley came out, and I hit the roof when Dakota Kai came out. I am so happy. She's one of the best talent, one to come out of NXT in a long time, and I do think she's definitely in the top 5, top 6 on the women's main roster right now. She is that skilled, and she is going to be an overall star on the main roster. I am excited. Let's go.
Yeah, and I'll add one more thing about Dakota Kai. As somebody who was a religious viewer of NXT, something I can say about Dakota Kai that you cannot say about a lot of the women on the roster is that she has the Becky Lynch capability of being great as a face or a heel. Dakota Kai was a great face. She was a beloved face in NXT, and it was that turn that, you know, made everybody love Dakota Kai. She can work as both a face and a heel. So we have somebody who has longevity in the WWE roster, somebody who beyond once the Control faction inevitably breaks up, who knows when that might happen, she's going to be a star when she's on her own. But this is a great introduction of Dakota Kai into the wider masses, because most people that are casual fans do not know who she is. If you're listening to this, you don't fall under that category. You are not a casual fan. You are a hardcore enough fan to be listening to two blokes talk about professional wrestling here on YouTube or whatever podcast service you're listening to. But in the event that you are a casual fan of the WWE, just know that Dakota Kai is going to be a backbone of the women's division for the next 10 to 15 years. That is the quality talent that we got, and the type of talent that can change with the tides of time, as she has proven that as she's capable of doing in NXT. But even though Dakota Kai might be in combination the best package out of everybody, out of everybody right now that's back in the WWE, I'm getting confused here. I do want to talk about the other person that is part of that Control faction, and this person, although may not be as great a character worker as Dakota Kai, is right now, Steve, the best women's wrestler on the main roster, and that is Io Shirai, now Io Sky, which, by the way, that's a name change I can actually get behind, one that actually makes sense, because
I'm completely okay with that.
That one makes sense. Not Walter de Gunther, Io Shirai, Io Sky. I think we're all okay with that. Io Sky, it's going to take me a while. Io Sky is instantly the best worker in the women's division right now. Instantly. She has some way to go in terms of developing her character, but she's proven again in NXT that she can work as a face and she can work as a heel. She can be a top champion in NXT. And again, this is somebody that, if WWE can get it right, can be a pillar of the women's division for a very, very long time.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think she more than proved it on Monday night, coming out with her match against Bianca Belair, which I thought, normally, you know me, I turn off the Bianca matches. I don't care. But obviously you knew who was getting forced into the storyline. I watched every second of that and enjoyed every second of that. The skill, the ability, the selling, the storytelling, everything that we saw in that match is everything that Io Sky brings to the table as one of the best in-ring performers on the main roster now. For the women, actually, you could say she's one of the best in-ring performers across talent. You know, like, she just needs what you said, that character development, like a lot of the traditional Japanese New Japan style wrestlers do need when they come over to sports entertainment. But I think in this faction, she's definitely going to get it. And I'll tell you right now, I'm looking ahead here. I'm licking my lips to see Io versus Asuka. Just saying.
I mean, I'm licking my chops at just about anybody versus Io, because I genuinely believe that she is now the best worker in the women's division, and we're going to see that for years to come here, now that she is going to be seen by the wider WWE audience. We talked about the return of Bayley. What's interesting, Steve, is even though, Bayley returning isn't a Triple H doing, Bayley was going to return regardless of what was happening. The current reports are that this faction, a heel faction for Bayley, was shot down by Vince for the last 2 months. So even though Bayley returning is inevitable, the way that she returned under Triple H's regime and being able to become the leader of now a very dominant women's faction, her return wouldn't have been as impactful under Vince McMahon. So I'm going to throw Bayley into the conversation. Even though this isn't a return caused by Triple H, it is the way that she returned is a Triple H booking. So I do want to talk about that, because I think her coming back with her own faction, brilliant, because even though we were all looking forward to seeing Bayley, she would have been another one of those, she would have always been part of the main event rotation in and out. This makes her unique. This makes her a threat across the entire division. If it was just her by herself, she's another rotating talent that is going to come in and out of the women's title picture. With this, she can be a Roman Reigns in the women's division. I mean, it might be, a bit of a hyperbole and over exaggerating a little bit, but she can be now a very dominant force within the women's division that the women's division can be built around over the next while Becky Lynch is gone.
Yeah, listen, I think we saw this a couple of years back when Paige returned and she came in with Mandy Rose and Sonya Deville as this was going to be the dominant women's faction and heel women's faction. And let's be real, with the names in there, it didn't work. For some reason, it just didn't get the ooh and the ah that it really deserved because of the names that were there. But you're looking now at 3 completely different characters, all with a particular set of skills in this faction that they could possibly be in the future when Toxic Attraction gets brought up. It could be a brilliant feud between the two. And Toxic Attraction is an amazing female heel stable, but it doesn't matter which one has to go face. Both these stables could be brilliant on the main roster. Io Sky is going to be the dominant in-ring performer. She's going to be the workhorse there. I can see both her and Dakota Kai taking these women's tag titles and actually making them mean something for once, probably being the most relevant since they were on the Iconics. And let's just say, come on, the Iconics were great for the division. And I wanted to actually add them to this list before we obviously heard all the new news. But the women's tag division is going to mean something finally when they finally put the straps on Dakota and Io. And honestly, I see that happening at Clash. This is going to be a very quick push for this stable, especially with potential returns. We'll get into that in a minute. But Bayley as an overall stable leader and as a heel, we know Bayley has always been a great heel. Even when you and I were talking about her the other week, saying if she returns, we need her to return as badass Bayley, not this hugger bullshit. I never want to see a wacky waving inflatable tube man again. We need this badass Bayley. This entire stable put together is going to be something that is going to last for a good 5 years, with all of them having an effect very Shield-esque. That's a big shout. It's a hot take. I know people in the comments are going to roast me for that, but just watch it, because if with the Triple H at the helm, with the right direction, this could be the women's version of the Shield moving forward.
Yeah, and Steve, you brought up Toxic Attraction, and Toxic Attraction as a faction is the product of NXT 2.0 for the most part. Interestingly enough, now that Triple H is back, I'm not sure if you watched the most recent episode of NXT, they lost the women's tag championships. So who knows? Maybe we will be seeing Toxic Attraction making its way into the main roster sometime soon.
So the one thing I want to say to that point, Santi, is I actually with somebody else online did a breakdown of the women's current roster for SmackDown and Raw. And I'll tell you right now, that SmackDown roster is very light. It only has, I think, 11 women compared to, without the new stable, I think it's 15 women on the Raw roster. So there is room on the SmackDown roster for this to be a huge push for Toxic Attraction to come out, but we're not talking about them right now. But I'm just saying there's a point to be made that the SmackDown roster is very light right now.
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's move on here. Again, kind of staying on the same topic, not a return, but maybe a return to glory, as we are now seeing Tommaso Ciampa not just have television time, but the entirety of Monday Night Raw was basically written around Tommaso Ciampa, and now he's our number one contender, the right choice, in my opinion, for Bobby Lashley's United States Championship. So again, not a return per se, but a return to glory, something I don't think that we would have seen under Vince McMahon. This, again, has Triple H written all over it.
Listen, Tommaso Ciampa is not your stereotypical Vince McMahon guy. He's a little smaller, great. He's got a physique, but he still looks like kind of at some points a rundown hillbilly. He doesn't have that persona to be on the mic. But listen, you watch anything from Black and Gold when Tommaso Ciampa and Johnny Gargano, or Tommaso and Adam Cole were going at their feuds. It is some of the best work you are going to see by a professional wrestler and a sports entertainer anywhere in the last 5 years. Tommaso can work, he can cut a nasty promo, and his character development mentally is phenomenal. I'm saying this, he's not winning this US title next week. Tommaso Ciampa and Bobby Lashley are going to be in the middle of the card at Clash at the Castle. And it's going to be a massive pop for Tommaso at Clash, because I say, throw it out there. He comes back with his music. He is going to have a very heavy push for the next 3 to 6 months. And if he runs with this, we could see once, and hopefully when the titles get separated off of Roman, Tommaso in that kind of deep six world title picture, going into Survivor Series day one, and especially into Elimination Chamber. I'll tell you now, Tommaso Ciampa is in that Elimination Chamber for a main event spot at Mania.
Now, Steve, we're seeing the push of Tommaso Ciampa. Does anybody else come to mind from either Raw or SmackDown that could get this type of push under Triple H? Because the main guy that I'm thinking of in SmackDown, but he was already at the very least getting a Vince McMahon push, and that's Gunther. Of course, it's tough to say that he's not being pushed when he is getting prevalent TV time on SmackDown. I love the dynamic that he has with Kaiser, and he is the Intercontinental Champion. Yet still not on SummerSlam, and hasn't been on any premium live event defending that title. So we might be seeing a resurgence of the mid-card titles under Triple H. But is there anybody on SmackDown that you have your eye on as somebody who might be potentially getting that Triple H push now that he's head of creative?
Listen, I don't understand how nobody can first come to mind as the glorious Bobby Roode. That glorious Bobby Roode has one of the best runs in NXT Black and Gold, with Triple H and Shawn at the helm back then, and I don't understand how nobody can say he's not a Triple H guy. He's literally got the physique and the persona of Triple H and Ric Flair built into one. So if Bobby Roode doesn't get some sort of Bobby Roode's getting a match on SmackDown this week. I'm calling this right now. Bobby Roode deserves a push. I'm not saying, and this other one has been kind of shifting back and forth for me from Raw and SmackDown as of late. But we can't forget about Dolph Ziggler. Dolph Ziggler has been jumping left, right, and center, NXT, Raw, SmackDown for the past couple of months. But I think Triple H definitely sees something in him, and I can see Ziggler getting something. And my final one, and it's not a SmackDown guy, and I'm not a big fan of him, but I believe Triple H loves him. Mustafa Ali. Like, he was in that great triple threat with AJ and Miz on Monday night, and he put on a clinic with two of the best on Monday Night Raw, and Mustafa held his own and looked good. He had his timing was perfect. He sold the Styles Clash perfectly. He was in all the right spots. It's great. So those three for me, I can see getting prevalent runs in their respective whatever their respected shows are, because we don't even realize if the brand split's even a thing anymore. But definitely Bobby Roode on SmackDown. Bobby Roode needs a push, and he's a Triple H guy through and through.
I'm gonna throw out a name, and that's Shinsuke Nakamura. I like the idea of Shinsuke Nakamura getting brought back into the limelight. Even if it's just as a ploy to prevent him from returning back to New Japan. We saw WWE do this with Io Sky, who was all but confirmed to be returning back to Japan, and clearly she's not. Now she has her main roster spot, and she's likely going to be in the WWE for years. It's possible that Triple H understands what type of weapons he has in his arsenal. Vince did not see Nakamura as a top guy, never did, even though, you know, they gave him the Rumble. He was never billed as such, okay? But in NXT, okay, first of all, Nakamura is the greatest NXT champion of all time. His run as NXT champion is nothing short of amazing. Like, that run is so good on the NXT roster. I would love, I'm not saying he needs to be champion or need to be near the top of the card, but I would love for Triple H to remove the hand shackles of Shinsuke Nakamura and just let him be the king of strong style again. I don't want him air guitaring anymore. I don't want him being Pat McAfee's hype man. I want him to be Shinsuke Nakamura from Black and Gold. That is a guy that can put on a match and does not need a title. He can fill that void that Cesaro left of the fantastic worker putting on great 10-15 minute matches. That brings me to my next point that I want to talk about, Steve. Are there any guys right now that are over in AEW that are fucking kicking themselves for jumping ship now that Triple H is at the helm? Because I just mentioned one of them, even though he's Ring of Honor champion, that's all fine and dandy. But if Triple H was the head of creative and he had Cesaro, I'm almost confident Cesaro, we'd be potentially talking about him being the one to dethrone Roman Reigns.
Okay, that's a big shout. I was going a different way with that, but yes, Cesaro is definitely kicking himself right now. I would have said that Cesaro would be an incredible feud for Gunther.
Oh, hell yeah.
And, like, you talk about meat slapping matches, there is your meat slapping feud of 2022. Simple as that. Those boys would absolutely put on a wrestling clinic. Simple as that. And I would love to see every single one of those matches. I would be on the edge of my seat. So yes, Cesaro is definitely kicking himself. I got two others. Samoa Joe, Adam Cole, and actually I got one more, Keith Lee. Take one from the women's division, I'd say Ruby Soho. But you know what?
Hindsight's 2020, right?
Yeah, you never say never, as they say in the WWE. Adam Cole, he's got himself in this back with his boys and that kind of thing, and he's with his girlfriend over there. But I'll tell you right now, if Adam Cole ever came back to the WWE, Adam Cole is in that main event run with Seth, Kevin Owens, Roman. Like, that's one for sure. Samoa Joe, we're not going to see a lot of Joe on screen, but the work that Joe is doing with Regal on NXT as the enforcer during that kind of lockdown period was really good work. I loved, and Coach Joe's always been a Triple H guy.
Well, I mean, Triple H is the one that brought him back after he got fired the first time.
Exactly. So you don't. Here's the one thing. The one shout I do have in Santi, like, we have our list made. I just realized is Joe is no longer Ring of Honor champion. Now, that could be something else. I
Yeah,
don't know how.
I mean,
we
it's
don't know how long his
interesting,
contract
right?
is.
It's interesting because AEW, they are, I mean, yes, they have the guys that are under AEW contracts, right? But they have these quasi not AEW contracts, right? Like we had Johnny Mundo or Johnny Nitro, whatever you want to call him, being in that like hybrid AEW, not in AEW. Matt Cardona, who knows? Maybe that's how Samoa Joe. Maybe that's kind of where he falls in those hybrid contracts, where he's not. He's under a appearance contract with AEW as opposed to a length contract. Who knows, right? So there are, because of how AEW conducts business, it is possible that some of these guys that are under quote contract over in AEW may not be under such a powerful contract where we could see them in WWE within the next year. It's totally possible, but you know, we can speculate all we want. We have a list of people that we want to talk about, so let's get started. This is topic of the show. We're going to be talking about the people, the superstars that we could realistically see returning to the WWE now that Triple H is the head of creative as well as talent relations. The first one, let's get this one out of the way, because I wouldn't be surprised if by the time that this is published, they've already returned. That is Sasha Banks and Naomi. We'll put that one as 1 and 2 over here. It seems that the reason they left was Vince McMahon. All right. There's a classic sales mantra. If someone has an objection, you figure out, is that their only objection? And then they should buy. So if their objection to WWE was Vince, and now they can say there is no Vince, 2 + 2 = 4, logic dictates that they're gonna come back. Now, I can't say this about Naomi, but Sasha Banks, that's a Triple H girl through and through. All right.
Absolutely.
That is a Triple H girl. Again, I can't say the same thing for Naomi, but Sasha Banks, absolutely. But it sounds like it's not a one or the other. Like if one comes back, we should be seeing the other one come back as well. I think this is kind of an obvious one, Steve. I'm sure the listeners at home aren't enlightened here by our thoughts and opinions. So do you want to just kind of tell us your 2 cents here and we can move on?
Yeah, like all I'm gonna say is you just reminded me of an old job I used to have where I had to, battle people saying they didn't want to buy. And is that your only objection? Is that the only thing that's preventing you to doing this today? Yeah, okay, cool. Sasha, Naomi, Sean Ross Sapp, and Schmelzer have pretty much already said they have signed agreements. Like you said, this is probably going to air the same day that they both show up back in WWE and tear the house down and get a great pop. Granted, I personally think if they come back, they should be separated. I don't want to see Sasha Banks going for tag titles anymore. Sasha Banks is a women's champion. She's one of the 4 horsemen. She doesn't deserve to be in a tag position. At the end of the day, it's best for business to have Sasha Banks back on WWE television. She is a Triple H girl. Triple H gave her and Bayley the first ever shots at everything to main event a premium live event or a pay-per-view back then. I say now it is best for business for Sasha to walk back into that ring, tear the roof down, and obviously go after Liv Morgan for that WWE SmackDown Women's Champion.
Hey, I'm kind of with you on, I like Sasha Banks should not be in anywhere near the tag division. That being said, if the tag division is going to be taken seriously and we have the likes of Control in there, and it could maybe even eventually set up a feud between Sasha Banks and this heel Bayley, I'm all down for it. If it means rejuvenating the tag division and having Sasha Banks go after the tag titles, I'm all for it. It just, the possibilities are limitless when you have all of these women on the roster, and Sasha Banks just needs to come home. And Naomi, just join the bloodline already, for God's sake. We know that that's where you belong.
Quick question. Why do you keep calling them Control? Is that what they're called?
Oh yeah, that's what the faction is called. Yeah, the faction is called Control. And of course, Adam, aka Braun Strowman, replied, "Your narrative." All right. Relax, buddy. Stop trying to make Control your narrative a thing. It's not. All right. Let's move on here. Yes, Steve. The faction is called Control.
I didn't know.
Yeah, number 2, we've already sort of talked about him. He was part of the same release grouping as Dakota Kai. Now, this would be less impactful, but I think that he was a universally loved individual that I think a lot of people would like to see back in NXT, and that is Dexter Lumis, an individual who shockingly made a great character out of nothing. Just somebody that stares into the void and into the abyss, and nobody stared better into the void and into the abyss than Dexter Lumis. He was part of some relevant quasi main event storylines in NXT 2.0 after Hunter was removed, but the moment that they had the chance to release him, they released him. I could see Dexter Lumis being somebody that gets brought back, not into the main roster, back into NXT. Again, it all depends on what the plans are for NXT. For those that might be listening and maybe don't follow NXT as closely as I do, they had NXT tryouts at Nashville during SummerSlam. And the people that they had scheduled to show up were the people that were the 2.0 image, which was college athletes that they can mold into WWE superstars of the future. Triple H was there, and many people who are decision makers within WWE were there. Unanimously, these were some of the worst candidates that they have ever seen. There were concussions, people were getting hurt, rolled ankles, and that is what happens when you bring people who are green as grass that don't know the business. They just have the right look. Apparently, after these tryouts, the decision is, you know what? Now we're going to reconsider bringing indie superstars into NXT. If that's the case, Dexter Lumis fits the bill. He is big. He knows the WWE system. He knows how to work the WWE showmanship, not just the in-ring aspect of the business. He's a great fit to bring NXT back into not necessarily black and gold, but the Triple H image. He's not going to tear the house down. He is not going to be your main event. He is not going to hold the NXT championship, but he could be a great additional enhancement talent to the WWE NXT pool.
Hey, character building 101. Bring somebody in that already knows how to help you grow in the business. And Dexter Lumis, like you said, has already done this. We're not going to see him on the main roster right away. Even if they came in and rejigged his character a little bit, still brought him in as Dexter Lumis, but maybe they give him a voice. Maybe they give him a manager, not Indy Hartwell, because she's going to do her own thing soon and probably be up on the main roster herself. But again, you can build so many great feuds with like Joe Gacy. You could even have Dexter Lumis go against Braun. Go against Braun Breaker. That's another great feud. 2 great workers in the ring. He's never going to win the title. But again, make Braun work against guys his size. And again, a Triple H guy, these NXT tryouts, what I heard and read, like, God damn it, Dwight Howard was there. Like, let's talk about that, friend. Like, really? Dwight Howard? But they were horrible. You might as well grab people from the stands at SummerSlam and say, hey, do you want to go and try out just because you're wearing a WWE shirt? At the end of the day, you need to be built for this business, and Dexter Lumis is built for this business. And my final comment on his particular release is NXT was handcuffed by Vince's creative control of NXT, Vince's and Bruce Pritchard's NXT 2.0 creative. Now that Hunter is in charge of creative and talent relations for the main roster, I'm pretty sure he's going to say, Sean, do it. Because those two think pretty much in sync when it comes to this business. So if Sean thinks Dexter is someone we need to bring back, Hunter's going to be like, why are you even bother asking? Simple as that.
Yeah. And guys, not everybody that comes back has to be some shocking giant revelation, industry changing return, right? Every team needs to have a bench. And you need to have if you have garbage players on the bench, you're going to lose your games, right? You need people who can perform in the middle stages of a card. You need to have people who can perform on dark matches. And Dexter Lumis fits the build for all of this. And that's where we're coming from when it comes to bringing back Dexter Lumis. Now, if you want to bring back somebody who can be a little bit more impactful, let's talk about one of the biggest botch jobs in WWE history. It still pains me what they did to this man under Vince McMahon. And that is Karrion Kross, and we'll toss Scarlett in here. So a couple of things. Let's talk Scarlett first. She was deemed so irrelevant to the Karrion Kross gimmick that they didn't even bring her along into the main roster call-up for Karrion Kross. All right? That's mistake number one. All right? Those two, peanut butter and jam. Their entrance was phenomenal in NXT. It got people excited. It got people hyped. And it was led by Scarlett Bordeaux. So, issue number one, them never seeing the value in the pairing of Scarlett and Karrion Kross and not bringing up Scarlett into the main roster. Sin number two, probably the biggest one, was Karrion Kross himself, what they did to this man, having him lose to Jeff Hardy while he is holding the NXT championship and having a undefeated run in NXT, and his first loss coming to Jeff Hardy via, I believe, a roll-up, if I'm remembering correctly.
I'm pretty sure Jeff had his feet on the ropes as well.
It was so bad. And then they made him wear like gimp costumes, like from
Martin gear.
Yeah, it was so bad. The ring gear also just made him a laughing stock. It just made him look like a sadomasochist sex slave. It was bad all around, and none of that had to do with Triple H. Dear God, I hope not. But now that we have Triple H on the main roster, taking control of creative, could we see Karrion Kross and Scarlett, who are not under contract anywhere? They're part of Control Your Narrative. But for all intents and purposes, what we know is that's just performances that they put on. None of them are under any sort of contract. Could we see Karrion Kross and Scarlett make the return either to NXT or to the main roster under Triple H? And if they do come back, are we going to get the Karrion Kross of old, or are we going to get, sadomasochist sex gimp Karrion Kross?
I think we all know the answer to that one. We are going to get the old, savage, heel Karrion Kross. Doesn't need to say much, except for when he's asked, and Scarlett's going to do all the work. Listen, when I think of Karrion Kross and Scarlett Bordeaux, there are two other past male-female group partnerships that I think of. First one, Macho Man Randy Savage and Miss Elizabeth. Listen to me now. Would you ever separate them except for a quality storyline? No. And the second one is Triple H and Stephanie McMahon. They only got separated for quality storylines. Scarlett is Karrion Kross's character. She is such a good build, and she's not actually half bad in the ring. I'm not saying she's Charlotte, Becky, or Bianca. Yes, I said Bianca, but she can keep up with said Carmella, Natalia, and Dana Brooke. She can still do it in the ring as well. So her being irrelevant is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard in my life. And if it wasn't for that, like we saw what the main roster the debut looked like. It was horrible. The Fall and Prey is not good without Scarlett literally building and making Karrion Kross look like an Adonis of a man. He already does, but she enhances it all the right ways. If they come back, I don't care if it's NXT, I don't care if it's the main roster. If it is NXT, Braun Breaker is in a lot of trouble because Karrion Kross is going straight to the top for that title because his dark promos for the title were phenomenal. So at the end of the day, saying that she is irrelevant and he was not good enough for the main roster and he got buried on an irrelevant match as NXT champion undefeated against Jeff Hardy is probably the worst booking I have seen in the last 18 months by WWE.
I don't think that's an exaggeration. I actually think that is a perfect way to put it. It is the worst booking I've seen in recent memory. Yeah, that is a person that a pairing that I'm excited to see back in the WWE again, and they work perfectly in either promotion, NXT or the WWE main roster. I would be excited to see Karrion Kross and Scarlett make a jump to either one of those entities of the WWE. I think I'd actually be a little bit more excited of them in NXT.
Absolutely.
I think I would be more excited to see them in NXT. But are they quality enough to be in the main roster? Yes, so long as they are together. Karrion Kross is a good worker, and he is hard-hitting and a menace, but that doesn't come across as well unless Scarlett is there to create the eeriness of the entrance, the eeriness of the backstage promos. You need them together. Do not separate them. If you bring back Karrion Kross, bring him back with Scarlett. If you're not going to bring Scarlett alongside Karrion Kross, just let Karrion Kross continue to do his thing in the independents, because it's just not going to work. What happened to Rusev the second they separated him from Lana? Down the drain. All right. Now, I mean, he's doing a pretty decent job over in AEW of reinventing himself as a singles character, but I don't think that Karrion Kross is as good as Miro when it comes to connecting with the audience. We need him with Scarlett. That is my opinion.
Agreed, 100%.
All right, so we talked a little bit about AEW, and now we could have made this whole video about different AEW guys that could eventually make the jump over to back to the WWE under Triple H. But we picked what I feel are the two most realistic ones, because yes, we can say Adam Cole. We can say Matt Hardy. We can say Christian. We can say, dare I say, CM Punk? Yeah, right. But let's talk about two really realistic options based on how they were booked under Triple H and how they would fit on a current day main roster. So let's talk right now about Andrade El Idolo or Andrade Cien Almas. Couple of contextual bits that make this very realistic. One, he is married to one of the top stars in the WWE, number one. Two, he was booked tremendously under Triple H and delivered at every takeover that Triple H booked him to main event or not main event. He was always a stud for Triple H. Three, he is now the son-in-law of Triple H's idol in Ric Flair. All right, so these three things coming together, if Andrade ever even so much as has the inclination to return to WWE, he will be returned with open arms. He was smart. He was not one of these guys that started cussing out Vince McMahon and everybody that fed him for many years in WWE. This man wants to return to the WWE. It's going to happen the moment he asks.
Yeah, 100%. And it's kind of funny, Santi, the way you said he didn't cuss them out. It was almost, when he was released, there was that little break where him and Charlotte were taking vacations, and there was a lot of social media play back and forth, and it was kind of funny. They were in airports. He was wearing an AEW hat. She was wearing a WWE hat, and some of the captions were, "We run both games." And I remember this, and I'm like, these aren't shots. This is just being comfortable in a relationship and the situation that they have been given. And honestly, I don't truly believe up until recently that Andrade has been used well in AEW. Andrade has been used piss poorly. Okay. Up until his tag team partner just showed up from, I believe it's what, AAA.
Mm-hmm.
He showed up, and now we're starting to see a little bit of a bump in Andrade's stock in AEW.
Yeah, but nowhere near to the level he had at NXT.
That's exactly where I was going. Nowhere near. Andrade right now on the AEW roster is about here. If he ever came back to the WWE roster, there is so much creatively you could do for this man on NXT, which I personally would rather see him on the main roster in an upper tier feud. Again, I keep saying the same names: Seth Rollins, Kevin Owens, Roman Reigns. Hell, throw Finn Balor in there. Andrade versus Finn would be incredible. Cody Rhodes. Can't forget about Cody Rhodes. Imagine Andrade booked correctly with Cody booked correctly in WWE. That is a main event of a pay-per-view or a premium live event. Secondly, let me just say about this. I just mentioned his tag partner. For me, the tag division for the men right now is floundering because you have the Street Profits. You don't really know what's going on. The New Day, they're not really doing their thing. I think Woods just went out with an injury. You really only got the Usos and the Viking Raiders and Alpha Academy really carrying the men's tag division. Bring Andrade and his tag partner over. Now there's a tag team that I would love to see go against the Usos. Now, though, that's a 5-star match any day of the week, twice on Sunday. You could book them somewhere with Charlotte, put them back with Zelina. There are so many things and options under Triple H that Andrade could flourish and be relevant again in WWE. This is one of the ones, Santi, if we were to make this a tiered list of guys I would love to see come back, he would genuinely be in my top 3. I want Andrade El Idolo back in WWE in some sort of factor because he is so good. He is so talented and suave. He's the total package when it comes to what a sports entertainer needs to be. He's phenomenal in the ring. He's actually decent on the promo when he actually takes his time, and he has that, Eddie Guerrero look. And look how over Eddie was. Eddie was that total package. Andrade, I'm not saying Andrade is on Eddie's level, but he could be with the proper guidance and no restrictions.
Yeah, I think it also would be interesting now that, the WWE is definitely in the mindset that the pandemic is over. If they start traveling back, I mean, we see them, they're going to the UK, they're coming to Canada. It's been a really long time. Those international trips will eventually bleed into the Latin American market. They're going to eventually go back into Mexico, into South America, and do all those tours. And they don't really have a Latino star. They have the Mysterios, yes. But for how much longer? And you don't really have the Mysterios as Latin American stars. You just really have Rey Mysterio. Dominic is not a star. He is a star by association with Rey Mysterio. You don't really have that Latino superstar to really build and grow in the Latino market. So again, marketable in so many ways, in-ring as an in-ring performer, as the total package, being the face of WWE en Español. So yes, Andrade is honestly, in my opinion, he is better off in the WWE than he is over in AEW. He in AEW, he is a large fish in a small pond. In WWE, he has the potential to be a large fish in the largest pond in the game. I'm not saying a little fish in a big pond. I'm saying big fish in that big pond as well. All right, that is the ceiling that I see for somebody like an Andrade El Idolo. Another AEW guy here, Steve. Again, we could have pondered a bunch of different AEW guys, but we wanted to stick to those AEW guys that were treated just so well under Triple H, and then we saw them get treated not so well by Vince McMahon, because we could have talked about Adam Cole, but we never got to see Adam Cole under Vince McMahon. I'm sure he would have been buried to Kingdom Come, but he never got buried.
Well, his booking was going to be as a manager for whomever.
But who did get buried and was completely destroyed on the main roster? Aleister Black. And of course, we know that he's under contract. He's all elite, yes, and it probably won't happen for several years. But if if Triple H were to knock on Aleister Black's door, Aleister Black is going to see a couple of things. One, he is going to see his wife, who is in the WWE. Two, he is going to see more money. And three, he is going to see the guy that made him a superstar in NXT and made him a household name across the wrestling world, being now the head of creative of the biggest part of the biggest wrestling promotion on the planet. If I'm Aleister Black, I have a very difficult time saying no to that proposition.
Yeah, listen, Santi, I mentioned about Andrade, about having a top 3 of guys I want to see come back to WWE. Aleister Black falls in my number 2 category. His ability to build a character is next level. I've always been a fan of the darkness in a character. I've always been a fan of somebody that can make dark look cool and evil look cool. And Aleister Black is the embodiment of all of that. And we're not just talking as a character, we are talking in a true organic lifestyle. He lives and breathes this character in and out of the ring. Granted, he's kind of funny over on his Twitch channel, but at the end of the day, this is what this guy believes in. So what you're getting from him is honest character work. And he's an incredible athlete in the ring. He does some stuff that cruiserweights he does some things that cruiserweights can do. He can fight with the big boys, and he can actually cut a brilliant promo. Aleister Black, I think, is the second biggest miss WWE has had in years when it comes to not understanding having lightning in a bottle. I'm sorry I'm taking your phrase, but not understanding how good and how far you could go with this. You could have had a new version of the Ministry of Darkness with Aleister Black, and it would have been over with the crowd. Because if you were planning on going TV 14, and maybe they weren't planning about Vince leaving and Triple H being in creative control, but if you were planning on moving in this more aggressive direction, why not make you went to go with Judgment Day, who is basically failed so far. Imagine doing Judgment Day and not having Edge, but having Aleister Black as the leader. Excuse me, take my fucking money. Simple as that. That is creative. Aleister Black and the House of Black is good under AEW and Tony Khan. Imagine it under Triple H's creative saying, go out there and scare me. Not draw me money. Go out there and scare me and every one of those little kids in the front row. Aleister Black would be like, thank you, no problem. Off he goes. And his entrance was incredible too. It was one of the best entrances since Taker. The sit-up, the coffin, yes. Everything about Aleister Black screamed draw money, scare people, and just build an incredible character. For me, Aleister Black could have been world champion, or if he was still there, I truly believe his ability in the ring and the way to tell a story, he could be the one to dethrone Roman Reigns. That's a hot take right there.
Yeah. We're going to be moving on here, but I got to echo almost everything that you're saying here, because we never really got to see what he's capable of doing in the main roster. He was losing matches in the main roster. He got hurt, and then he came back, and it looked like they were about to do what they're currently doing with Gacy and NXT with Aleister Black on the main roster. And I would have been down for that. And they did it for 1 week, the vignettes, and then he got released. So we never got to see what they were about to do with Aleister Black, which is a shame. But anything that Triple H does with Aleister Black will be gold, and fans will be all the better for it. The product will be all the better for it. We need to see Aleister Black back in the WWE family. Now, let's move on here to, again, one of those guys that's in limbo, because he could go anywhere. He has the power to go anywhere, and so does his wife. So we're talking about Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae, two of the best workers on the planet when it comes to in-ring work. Candice LeRae being an elite women's wrestler, and Johnny Gargano, I mean, his name is Johnny Wrestling for a reason. Johnny Takeover, Mr. Takeover. It would be irresponsible of us to not already assume that there's probably already an agreement in place for him to come back, right? I would not be surprised if that's the case. I would not be surprised if he's already signed with WWE and WWE told him, here's 2 months, get back in the in-ring shape. We'll see you after Clash in the Castle. If you told me this, would I be shocked? No. If while we're recording this, it comes out that Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae have signed with WWE, would I be surprised? No. I would now be surprised if they sign with AEW. I think that it would be ludicrous of them to sign with AEW if WWE is still an option for them, which I'm almost certain with every single fiber of my being that it is. These two are coming back to the WWE. AEW has lost out on these two. I'm already calling it. These guys are coming back to the WWE, and under Triple H, my mouth is watering as to what these two can do. We have Io Sky on the main roster now. You want to go back and watch a phenomenal NXT women's match? Go back and watch Io Shirai versus Candice LeRae. That woman can work. And if you want to watch the best matches ever in NXT history, I guarantee you all 5 of them are going to have Johnny Gargano. So when it comes to the in-ring work, these two are absolute fucking money. All right. Are they? Not so much Candice LeRae, but is Johnny Gargano small? Yes. Is he not a Vince McMahon guy in terms of his look, in terms of his promo capabilities and his sports entertainment factor? Sure. You know who else wasn't? Daniel Bryan. Daniel Bryan is Johnny Gargano in a different generation. If they can make it work with Daniel Bryan, they can make it work with Johnny Gargano. Now, that being said, had he gone through I think there's also like a big difference in terms of when they came up. I feel like in my mind that Vince sees Daniel Bryan as a WWE product because he was part of like that shitty NXT game show and whatnot. And I don't think that Vince would see Johnny Gargano as a WWE product. And that's actually part of the reason why I think a lot of these main roster call-ups fail under Vince, because he just doesn't see them as through and through WWE products. And Vince has been like this for his entire life. Look how he treated people coming up from ECW or people coming up from WCW. He doesn't see them as people that he built and stars that he made, so then he buries them. Right? I think that would have happened to Adam Cole, Kyle O'Reilly, and of course, we're talking about Johnny Gargano now. Johnny Gargano will be hear me out, a fucking giant superstar under Triple H. I am thinking he can be as big as Daniel Bryan was during WrestleMania. That is my take. And that is why that's why it would be stupid, absolutely colossally stupid for Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae to sign anywhere except the WWE.
All right. So I'm 50% with you. I have no quarrel with Johnny Gargano and Candice LeRae coming back. We've spoken highly about Candice LeRae. She could definitely be one of the best. Well, she definitely is one of the best workers in the women's division. She can come up to the main roster or go to NXT and probably be the one to take that title from Mandy Rose and run it back for a while and then move up to the main roster. That could be one position for Candice LeRae. We can hit on Candice LeRae all we want, but I'm going to go to Johnny Gargano. Johnny Gargano is never going to win the WWE title. Johnny Gargano is never going to win the Universal title. Johnny Gargano can be a staple in the mid-card for the next 10 years and have those little steps up to have those feuds, depending who the champion is. But even Triple H understands that Johnny Wrestling is Johnny Wrestling. Johnny Wrestling is a professional wrestler. Okay? And exactly what Triple H said on Impulsive the other day with Logan Paul. You need to have everything. You don't just need to be able to wrestle. You need to be able to entertain the crowd. Johnny's matches are entertaining as all hell. When Johnny is pissed off and in a death feud with like Ciampa and Adam Cole, where they actually gave him the mic and just let him loose, he is entertaining. But his overall entertainment is not that good, and it needs development for him to move to that upper echelon to superstar status. Santi, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just saying he's not there. He is and you can throw Steve L in these comments all you want, but at the end of the day, Johnny Gargano is incredible athlete, professional wrestler. If you want to try and redo Yeselmania and Kofi Mania with Johnny Gargano, I'm not going to be opposed to it because I genuinely like Johnny Gargano. And I would be entertained to see the booking and the writing for it. But right now, if he comes back, I want to see him feuding with the US champion. I want to see him feuding with the IC champion because we can't bring everyone back and put them in the main event. Johnny Gargano could feud easily with Gunther. He could feud nicely once Bobby Lashley loses this US title and takes a break because he's going to go fight Mike Tyson for big money. That's what just came out yesterday, and feud with Tommaso. Let's say Clash at the Castle, Tommaso Ciampa wins the United States Championship. How about a run-in from his old boy Johnny Gargano and start that feud right back up? Take my fucking money. Let's go.
Yeah, and that's the beauty of Triple H's booking in NXT, though. Because you can be a massive superstar under Triple H and not be near the world title picture. The biggest superstars in NXT for a solid year were nowhere near the world title picture. That was Tommaso Ciampa, that was Johnny Gargano, that was Authors of Pain, and that was The Revival. All right, the NXT under Triple H, the main event of like 3 pay-per-views of 3 takeovers were the tag team championships. All right, this is the beauty of Triple H's booking. Anywhere you are in the card, if you go back to NXT, any NXT takeover, wherever you were on the card, you fucking mattered. Everywhere. Second march on the card, second to last, middle. Every match mattered. That's why NXT takeovers were just universally loved. There is no, under Triple H, Steve, there is not a single bad NXT takeover. Those don't exist. And that's Triple H's beautiful booking and his ability to make everyone on the roster matter. So when I say he's going to be a superstar, I'm not saying he's going to be holding the titles either. He doesn't need to. He doesn't need to. He can be a superstar in the mid card. He can be a superstar in the tag team division. And Triple H has shown that he can take these people that aren't your prototypical world title contenders and make them matter to the point where you still want to see them in the main event. And that is important nowadays when your champion isn't even participating in most pay-per-views, right? Imagine a pay-per-view that doesn't have Roman Reigns with the unified world championships, but it still has takeover-like matches from beginning to the very end. Roman Reigns is an afterthought, and you're not even really thinking about it. That's the beauty of Triple H. That's where Johnny Gargano can fit, and that's how he can bring everyone up to enough relevance where you want to see them, and that draws money. Let's talk.
Absolutely.
Go ahead.
Sorry, I just want to say one more thing. I'm very surprised that you didn't mention Velveteen Dream, because before he got put into that title picture for that short period, his 6 months, you sat there and the only thing you wanted to see was Velveteen Dream's next segment.
Hell yeah.
And it was brilliant. And that's all Triple H booking. Velveteen Dream was relevant without wrestling. He was one of the best things on NXT without even stepping through the fucking ropes. So I just want to say I'm very surprised you of all people did not mention Velveteen Dream. That's the only thing. And you are completely right about Johnny Gargano, because there's two names that come to mind when you don't have to have a title to be relevant and a superstar. One, Seth Rollins. Two, Shawn Michaels.
You know what? I would even throw this next guy that we were going to talk about into that conversation of somebody that does not need the title. So The Fiend. All right. We've been wanting this for a very long time. We've been speculating it. We've been praying about it, right? We thought it was going to happen at SummerSlam with Seth Rollins. Here's why I'm a little bit concerned about this. The Fiend and Bray Wyatt were never a Triple H guy. He was part of NXT before it was black and gold, and he was called up to the main roster before takeovers began and Triple H really became the nucleus of NXT. So Bray Wyatt falls under the same era as the likes of Dean Ambrose, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns. We know that Seth Rollins eventually, he storyline purposes became a Triple H guy. But none of those guys were really made by Triple H, right? They graduated from NXT before he took over. So I'm a little concerned as to whether this is a possibility, somebody that Triple H is actively pursuing, because The Fiend and Bray Wyatt was never really part of anything that he really built creatively. Do we want to see The Fiend back in WWE though, Steve? Fuck yeah. Absolutely. Will The Fiend as a character work in any other promotion? No, I'm sorry. It won't. You need the grandioseness of the WWE. You need the TV production capabilities of the WWE. You need the lighting professionals from the WWE. You need basically an entire movie studio to make The Fiend work, and AEW doesn't have that. So but will it happen under Triple H is the question.
Santi, I'm begging for it. Now, there's 3 takeaways I have, because I am extremely active on my social media, and especially our social media. And Twitter is my favorite thing for wrestling trolls. Becky Lynch is great at it, and the second best at it is the Fiend, Bray Wyatt, Wyndham Rotunda. This man knows how to tease professional wrestling fans so bad that they clamor to watch shows just to see if his dark little tweet makes it relevant to the show. He actually has, I have it up right now. Begin again, kid. It's what you do. And it says VKM, which a lot of people are speculating is Vincent Kennedy McMahon. He's got tweets about returning and a new place and another second coming and so many things that he talks about. Do I want the Fiend back? I have never wanted a return in pro wrestling more than I've wanted the Fiend to come back since I wanted Austin to return from his neck injury. That is how over I was on the Fiend, and it goes back to what I was saying about Aleister Black. It's the darkness, it's the creativity. He was a good worker. The Firefly Funhouse was probably the most entertaining thing we got during the lockdown era, before the lockdown era. When it wasn't the Fiend that I enjoyed after Bray Wyatt left the Wyatt family, that wasn't the Fiend I enjoyed. It's that one step further down, basically to hell he went, where he came out with his own head as a lantern. That's the Fiend I enjoyed. The darkest version of Bray Wyatt we could get, with that little goofiness that he brought with Alexa Bliss. Probably one of the best tandems in creative wrestling that we've seen in 5-10 years. That was beautiful storytelling, and I loved every second of it, and I have made my top 3 list, and The Fiend is my number 1, and he's in limbo, and he's not been doing shows, not been doing meet and greets. I think he went to WrestleCon in November, and he was there for a short period of time. Other than that, he has not been doing anything except for this movie that we keep hearing about and not seeing. So what's he doing? Is he literally making us clamor just to keep himself relevant, or is there a final plan for the Fiend? And under Triple H, especially for his entrances, what he used to do at WrestleMania, he created all that for himself with Vince's okay. Now he doesn't need Vince's okay. So if the Fiend says, I want a burning ramp the entire way down like the Undertaker had druids, Hunter's going to be like, okay. If I want to have severed heads rolling down the ramp, okay, he's probably going to let that happen too. If the Fiend comes back, one, it's going to be one of the highest signed contracts that we have seen alongside Cody Rhodes. Because, granted, Cody was a draw, but he was a draw for a different reason. The Fiend's a draw because the fans have not given up on the Fiend returning. They have never given up. They thought it was a work originally for him to be released. And now every single premium live event or potential rumor, the fans blow up social media and just clamor to have the Fiend come back. Is Bray Wyatt coming back? Yes. When? I don't know. Do I want it? Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I don't really have much else to add there. I guess my biggest concern is just that everyone that we've talked about is in some way, shape, or form a Triple H made person, right? Whether it's from Karrion Kross to Johnny Gargano, Dexter Lumis, Sasha Banks, Andrade. Triple H has had a hand in all of these people, but he hasn't had a hand in the Fiend. Now, Triple H is a smart guy. But I obviously don't know him. Is he a prideful person? Is he a person that maybe he's a little bit more like Vince than we thought, where he only wants to push the people that he has made stars and not the people that were made stars either by somebody else or someone else? I'm hoping that that's not the case. I'm hoping that Triple H has a good enough head on his shoulders to realize the Fiend is money, regardless of whether or not he was the one that shaped and molded him into becoming the superstar that he did. Because that was Vince McMahon. Like, it really was. Like, the as for all of his flaws, all of his creative flaws, let's not forget that the Fiend is a product of the Vince McMahon era. All right, he wasn't made in NXT. Even the Bog character and cult leader really didn't really take off until he got to the main roster. Bray Wyatt is as much as he doesn't like him, he's a Vincent Kennedy McMahon character through and through. This has nothing to do with Hunter, unlike everyone else that we've talked about. I hope that doesn't get in the way. I hope that Triple H realizes we want to see him back and that he is going to draw money. I just hope that egos don't get in the way of this.
Yeah, exactly. And the one thing is we still have to remember is Vince's biggest thing was draw me money. I'm pretty sure the Fiend was up there with some of the highest merch sales when it came to the mask, the glove, the puppets from even look at Lily, even though it's Alexa Bliss, that was a Fiend creation through Alexa Bliss, right? And Lily's still selling out. So really, money is still number one when it comes to professional wrestling. We're not going to forget this. Yes, sports entertainment is a key factor. But if the Fiend comes back and they do it right, merch for him is going to be absolutely crazy. And he's going to draw big numbers. You put him in the main event, again, another person that could easily dethrone Roman. And then we can send Roman on his way to face The Rock at Mania. And just remember, one of the last little bits of the Fiend one of the last big feuds was Roman and the Fiend when Roman returned.
Yep.
And speared the Fiend. So there's a gateway to a feud right there. And whoever is the champion then can go and face Cody at Mania.
Tell me you wouldn't want to see the Fiend go after Riddle to get back at Orton. I think that would be brilliant. I would love that. I would love the Fiend and Riddle.
I would love the Fiend and Riddle too, because I think the Fiend, like, you could just have the Fiend standing in ring just staring, and like Riddle just walk up, be like, "Why so serious, bruh?"
Dude, imagine
And
Riddle in a Firefly Funhouse segment. That's just that would just be so good.
like, yo, how much did I smoke?
All right, Steve, let's wrap this up. Where do we want to shout out? Who in the world is watching us?
Ooh, my favorite part of the segment. All right. So listen, Santi, like we said before, our map has changed, so I can't really read all these, but I am gonna say Colombia and Peru are heating up real big. Like we're getting a lot more hits in South America. I'm gonna go over to finally Victoria, British Columbia has lit up. That's probably where my family is. Hopefully they're listening. Thanks, guys, if that is you. Vancouver, Portland, and then we're gonna cross right over to Europe, and we are heating up in France. France is getting very hot. Helsinki is heating up. Russia, Moscow has a few more hits. And let's finish it with, you know what? I'm going to go bias. Finally, Perth, Western Australia has hit the map. We hadn't had Perth. And I know the Perth, people down in Perth, and especially with their pro wrestling, is massive. So I love seeing that Perth, Western Australia is on the map.
Steve, where can people find you?
Guys, you can find me at twitch.tv/Mr. Tesh. I am finally back to streaming 4 times a week. I am competing with somebody on Twitch right now. Well, maybe not competing. I'm just covering the same timeline. So twitch.tv/Mr. Tesh. I start normally around 9 p.m. And yeah, that's about it. And you can find me on all of Straight Shoot's platforms. Santi, what about you?
Yeah, you can find me over on Straight Shoot and Straight Shoot Sports on TikTok and twitch.tv/SantiZap 5 to 6 nights a week. Folks, thank you very much for watching. This has been a lot of fun. Steve, you take care. I'll see you next week. And folks, whether you're watching on YouTube or you are listening on podcast services around the globe, find a way to give us a rating, whether it's a thumbs up on YouTube, 5 stars on Spotify. Any of those things will help us tremendously. So we thank you for engaging with our content, and we will see you. Oh, Steve, you want to say one more thing?
Hey, Santi, you didn't even mention the new merch that you're wearing.
Oh, yes. If you want your very own white straight shoot a wrestling podcast hoodie, we'll have the link in the description below for you to be able to buy yourself some sexy merch. Everyone will think you have the biggest PP on the planet. If you're a woman, everyone will think you have the biggest PP energy on the planet. Either way, you win and you got big PP. Take care, everybody.